Chapter 2 Items. Absolution. Antiva doesn't have a monopoly on assassins. The bleak Underfells have produced some of the most ruthless killers in the world, and in the capital of Hosberg there are never fewer than 10 in the service of their king. They served only the king, and the politics of the Underfells are a brutal affair. Among the pious, the most dangerous thing a man can do is disgrace himself, for the king sends his killers not for those who plot to overthrow them, but for those who break the Maker's laws and fall into sin and decadence. In the Unders, this is called absolution, not assassination. Death is the sinner's act of penance. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Traunchy Scholar, by Brother Genetivi. Armor of the Fallen. There is a legend in the Free Marches regarding the Fallen, a cadre of knights from various Marches cities that formed to fight the growing power of Orlais in the Exalted Age. To the Orlesians, these knights were little better than bandits, but to the Marchers they were heroes, warriors that fought for freedom and autonomy. Most of the fallen died on the fields of Ghislaine in 540 Exalted, defending the newly crowned king Tylus of Nevara from Orlesian attack. They held their line against a mounted chevalier charge, managing to keep Tylus alive long enough to retreat, and are credited with Nevara's continued independence everywhere outside Nevara itself. Armor of the Overseer. The Overseer was a nickname given to Magister Claudian Varantus, the last and perhaps most notorious of those assigned to the Maharian Jetstone quarry outside of Kirkwall, now known locally as the Bone Pit. The Magister was known for his sadistic cruelty. His malevolent social experiments were designed to make examples of those who disobeyed him. Varantus even noted that feeding slaves to his pet dragonlings was little more than they deserved. The slave revolt in 25 Ancient put an end to the Overseer. He was assaulted by a mob of slaves who stripped his enchanted robes and threw Varantus into the bone pit to be feasted upon by his dragonlings. What became of his robes during all the chaos is unknown, but it is assumed they remain in Kirkwall. From Kirkwall, The City of Chains, by Brother Genetivi, 924 Dragon. Orvar's Prize. Orvar Raid was a gifted young smith, or Orzammar. He fell in love, in secret, with the youngest daughter of Walden Turin, a high-ranking warrior, but Orvar knew their union would never earn Walder's blessing. He worked hard at his craft, and fashioned a beautiful mace, wrought from the purest steel, enchanted with lyrium. He presented it to his lover's father, who immediately recognized its value. Walder Turin asked what Orvar desired in exchange for the weapon. Orvar replied, "This is a masterwork piece. It is worth more to me than my own life. As payment, I can only accept something that is as dear to you as this mace is to me." Walder was silent for a moment, and then burst out laughing, amused at Orvar's boldness. He agreed to a price that he believed was worthy of the mace. Not 2 days later, Orvar and his love stole away from the city, with the princely sum her father had provided. Incensed, Walder tore Orzammar apart looking for his daughter. But she had gone with Orvar to the surface to start a new life. He never saw them again. The mace remained in Orzammar, but Walder would not bear to look upon it. It was hidden away deep in his estate, and sold to a merchant upon his death. Bardin's Folly. A dwarven rune crafter named Bardin made this for his lover Mela, a nobleman's wife, who was fond of dalliances. As the story goes, Bardin fell hard for Mela, and after a few passionate nights he presented her with a beautiful handcrafted ring. Feeling sorry for the love-struck fool, she graciously accepted the gift. Unfortunately for Bardin, his fine workmanship had become well known, and Mela's husband immediately recognized the handiwork. No one knows exactly what happened to the rune-crafter, but he disappeared from Orzammar shortly after. It's said that the nobleman tracked him down, tied him up, carved runes on every square inch of his body, and tossed his sinewy mass into a river of magma outside Orzammar. Mela fled to the surface with the ring. Some versions of the story have her making it to Orlais, while others involve Mela getting hopelessly lost in the deep roads, never to be seen again. The ring, however, turned up years later in a merchant's stash outside Ostwick. Bianca. Varric's crossbow is a marvel of dwarven craftsmanship, clearly the work of a master. However, she bears no smith's mark. When asked how he procured the weapon, Varric has few claims. He could have won it in a game of wicked grace against Paragon Branca. It could have been a gift from a mysterious old beggar who disappeared into thin air. And it's possible he bought it off of a crooked merchant in Lowtown with the previous owner's hand still wrapped around the trigger. None of these explanations are very likely, and continued questioning simply results in Varric grinning and walking away. Blade of Mercy. An enchanted replica of the blade Archon Hessarian used to slay Andraste as she burned. An act of mercy that he said the monk-maker commanded. Of course, the Tevinter Imperium did not become part of the Chantry until well after its formation centuries later, so the first of these blades were created in 2-2 glory as a gift from Archon Therion to his general, Lord Gallienus, for battles fought at the height of the Second Blight. Since then, many Archons gave similar gifts, and it is seen as a badge of honor within the Imperium, though more than one of these blades have ended up on the black market, either stolen or sold by the recipients when their family fell on hard times. Ironically, one of the 4 swords found impaled in the body of assassinated Queen Madrigal of Antiva in 599, exalted, thus inspiring the Age of Steel, was the Blade of Mercy. It was a great sacrilege to the Chantry. Bloom. Our hero strode the winding road, defiant of the vile, uncertain pause for home and cause when met the monster's smile. A man his kin through blood and sin, a bastard of the gloom, a rising cut through bone and gut, an awful skyward bloom. From Song of Old Marches, the death of goodman Sir Ostis at the hand of the Reaver Shias, inscriptions collected by Filiam, a bard. The Celebrant. The Ground Tourney is the oldest and perhaps only tradition of the Free Marches. On those rare 1,000 days when a contest of arms may be called, every marcher unites in fellowship to witness the birth of a new champion. Contestants come from all over Thedas. Minrathus alone always sends no fewer than 24 entrants, hoping to claim the honor for the Imperium. Once the champion was an Avar mounted man. Twice in a row it was Talisa of Sundarin, a lady knight from the Enderfells, which scandalized the crowd, created endless drama amongst the participants, and therefore got her declared the most loved champion in the history of the tourney. Each champion is presented a crown of sage leaves and a sword. The leaves wither, of course, as a reminder that all victories are fleeting, but the blade, Celebrant, endures, and has passed from champion to champion since the first, inscribed with the names of each victor, a reminder that legend is eternal. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar, by Brother Genetivi. The Centurion's Cuirass. In the 435th year of the Tevinter Imperium, Archon Almadrias built a summer palace for himself near the eyes of the ocean. The palace was considered one of the greatest wonders of the world, and many of Almadrias's jealous rivals hatched plots to burn it to the ground. To protect his palace, the Archon stationed 100 soldiers on permanent guard. These centurions were sworn only to the service of the Archon himself, their oaths sealed with blood. The reign of Almadrias ended in violence, and his successor, Tidarian, converted the palace into a garrison for his troops fighting the insurrections all across the Imperium. Amidst the bedlam, the centurions maintained their watch. They eventually fell in battle, but their oaths held, and the bodies rose again to take their posts. When Tidarian's reign came to an end, the magisters fought amongst themselves for 20 vicious years before they crowned a new Archon, and when Parthenius finally took the throne, he found that the palace and its guardians had vanished. Not a single stone remained in the Notion countryside. Some say the centurions, faithful to their oaths, carried the palace away brick by brick, and rebuilt it in a distant land where it would be safe, waiting for an Archon to lay claim to it. From Impossible Tales of the Imperium, by Hendrik of Cumberland. Cold-blooded. Edain of Starkhaven escaped from the circle of the Magi in the winter of 876 Blessed, the coldest winter that the Free Marches had seen in decades. He decided that it was better to die a free man than remain a servant to the Chantry, and broke out of the circle's stronghold, fleeing into an unforgiving blizzard. The Templars gave chase, but there was little they could do in the harsh winds and bitter cold. They came after Edain again in the spring, tracking him down to his hideout. But Edain was prepared, and he tore them to pieces with blood magic, and destroyed the phylactery they used to find him. With his phylactery gone, Edain was finally free. He married a young woman from the village of Hambleton, near Markham, and dedicated the rest of his life to the study of blood and primal magic. When Edain passed on, he left his memoirs, his magical research, and his staff to his children, one of whom was also a mage. The staff bears one notch on its shaft for every Templar Edain dispatched over the course of his life. Anasaline. Little knowledge remains of the great war with the Winter Imperium waged upon the elves of Arlathan. Many human scholars believe that Arlathan was the only elven settlement of note, and that if elves existed elsewhere on the continent, their forces were at best negligible. My conversations with the Dalish, however, indicate that there was a time when the elves had many cities, and it's possible that the elven civilization declined long before the Imperium entered the height of its power. An example of such a place is Sundermount in the Vimmerk Mountains near Kirkwall. According to Dalish legend, this was a burial site for elders and the location of a great battle between Imperial and Elven forces, nowhere near Arlathan, if one believes the city was near the forest of the same name in northeastern Thedas. The arcane warriors that remained on the mountain to defend their slumbering elders were known as the Anasaline Abelas, or Sorrowful Victory. These elves knew that they were going to die, but were bound by duty to protect their charges. The enchanted armor that belonged to these warriors was looted by the imperial victors, so pieces that resurface today are considered relics of great importance. From An Investigation into Arlathan, by Alstead the Sage, 918 Dragon. Finesse. Some might find it strange that the greatest assassin in the history of the Antivan Crows was both a woman and a commoner, a whore, if the legend is to be believed. I conferred with several crows myself, all of whom spoke only with monetary incentive as well as assurance of anonymity, and they say it is true. The assassin known to legend as Finesse was Callisto di Bastion, a wealthy courtesan who was welcome in many noble homes as well as their bedrooms. She was gifted with a silver tongue, and according to my contacts, may have received training among the Orlesian bards in addition to her time with the crows. Perhaps this is where her success can be credited. Finesse achieved fame and adoration among the common folk with the fatal stabbing of King Guermar the Younger in 422 Black. This adoration is not necessarily shared by the crows, however. That she was captured, hanged, and had her fabled dagger auctioned off to the highest bidder speaks poorly of her skills. Still, in centuries since, the crows have embraced her legend as their own. Convenient, as it only adds to their dangerous reputation. From A Shadow Unfolds, by Brother Ansel of Hosberg, 710 Storm. Garahel's Helm. I watched from across the battlefield as Garhel struck the final blow against the archdemon, and a great wave of energy surged out from the beast. It was enough to level what buildings were not already destroyed by the endless battle we had fought, enough to knock horses and ogres aside as if they were little more than parchment. Even at my distance, the force struck me like the blast of some great storm. The darkspawn around us felt it too, as savage desperation turned to sheer terror. A great pillar of energy rushed up to the dark clouds, the blackness that had gathered with the horde and blocked out all glimmer of hope. When we stood again, we saw the first rays of sunshine peeking through those clouds, and we let out such a cheer of joy and relief that it shook the very earth. I joined the others as we searched for Garahel, but as the eve approached, all I found was his enchanted helm. It was not until much later that I heard his body had been retrieved, flung to the far side of the battlefield by the archdemon's death throes. My friend, this elf who helped us unite the lands and cleanse Thedas of the Darkspawn's scourge, will always be remembered. I swear it. Excerpt from a letter written by the Grey-Warden Prosper, 524 Exalted. The Gem of Karoshek. Go to any hive of drinkers and gamblers in the marches, and you will undoubtedly hear the legend of the Gem of Karoshek. Ask 3 different men about it, and you will get 3 different stories. One will say that an alchemist found it in the ashes of Andraste's pyre, and then steeped it in wine for 40 days and nights. Another will swear that it was a bezoar cut from the belly of a boar that was found inside a griffin that was swallowed by a high dragon. The last will tell you that it's petrified heart of Trajan the Quick, a merchant prince of Orzammar who almost became a paragon. One thing all will agree on, however, is that it brings luck. Keep the Gem of Karoshek in your pocket, and you will never lose a bet. Sleep with it under your pillow, and it will bring wealth and prosperity into your life. And where is the gem now? That is the sovereign-plated question. I'm told it's in the mausoleum of a prince of Starkhaven, and that this is the reason for the city's wealth. Excerpt from Tales and Legends of the Three Marches, by Lord Rodney Pierce. Girdle of the Elders. The elf seemed pretty upset when we started pawing at his stuff, especially the belt. Turns out it's some kind of heirloom. The knife-ear claimed that it came from Arlathan, that it had been in his family for generations. Well, things change. We dumped the body by the mine for the clan to find. I took a closer look at the belt, and it was clear that the leather was new, but there was something odd about the buckle. So I brought it to this fellow in Valreau who deals in antiques, and he tells me it's old, could even be from the time of the ancient elves. Suppose the Rand was telling the truth. Anyway, I hope this is adequate payment for the job. You could sell it or melt it the buckle down. I believe it's real silverite. Excerpt from a letter found in a gambling den in Jader. Glandivalis. It is heresy today to speak of Shartan, an elven slave that rose up against his winter masters to help Andraste's barbarian invasion. It seems most people would prefer to believe that Andraste crossed the waking sea with little more than a basket of flowers and songs of peace and harmony. The truth is that she came with a horde of warriors at her back, and that without a rebellion occurring behind the enemy's line, it's very possible that the holy invasion could have been foiled. Shartan was a slave who became a fabled warrior and later a devotee of Andraste herself, and we know this because the Canticle of Shartan spoke of their meeting at the Valarian fields. Andraste gave him a mystic blade that he called Glandivalis, translation unknown, and he even fought at Mathera's side. But now the Canticle is one of the dissonant verses, and has been ever since the exalted March of the Dales. It seems we don't wish to speak of elven heroes or the role that they played in Andraste's war, any more than we wish to speak of barbarians or the bloody death toll that accompanied the war. With each passing age, heroes like Shartan become more of a fable, but some of us will always know the truth. From the Dissonant Verses by Sister Petrine, Chantry Scholar, 925 Dragon. Hands of the Carta. The dusters have a saying, blood or coin, the Carta always gets it cut. When Borat was running Dusttown, he took the saying literally. He commissioned a pair of wicked blades made by Smith House Durrell. Borat gave one to his right hand, Jarvia, and the other to his second, Carshaw, so that whatever hand of the Carta you got, it'd be holding a big sodding knife. Borat wasn't exactly a poet. Jarvia was killed in Dusttown during the messy succession, and Carshaw turned all of Orzammar upside down looking for her blade. Some dusters struck gold finding that blade and must have been clever enough to sell it right away. Stone only knows what Carshaw will do to the luckless colt who has it when he finds it. From the Account of Kala, a Castless of Orzammar. Karastan's Belt. The Antam infantry field commanders wear these belts. They may indicate rank, division within the army, or they may simply hold an upper spence up. As with most everything else, the Qunari refuse to explain the significance of the items. The Last Descent. The Legion of the Dead are comprised of dwarves who are looking to regain their honor. These discredited dwarves must venture into the deep roads to battle an endless tide of darkspawn. The Legion guarantees redemption for its members, but so too their deaths. There are records indicating that one human joined the Legion, Sir Aurelian Pentagast, the defeated contender for the Navaran throne, retreated into dwarven lands in 8060 Blessed. Sir Aurelian was a pious man who was ousted after clashing with his people. He believed the Maker demanded that he return to his homeland to Chantry rule. With little recourse but to live out his days as a dishonored exile, he joined the Legion of the Dead and went into the deep roads a dwarven hero. He was never seen again, but pieces of his enchanted armor have turned up on the surface in the ensuing decades. Some say the armor was scavenged off his body, others that he sold the pieces after secretly returning to the surface. The truth, as always, is known only to the Legion, whose motto has always been, "Our secrets die with us." From Legacy of Orzammar, by Alsted the Sage, 9-5 Dragon. Longbow of the Jackal. There once was a bard from Montsimard, whose tongue was made of purest silver. His name was Corsa the Jackal, and he was famous for enchanting emperors and empresses by knowing exactly what to say to please them. This often got Corsa in trouble. One day Corsa was traveling to Val Royeaux, where he was to press his silver-tongued words into Empress Necessity's ear. As he walked and rehearsed, a mighty storm blew in. Rain washed away the path, and Corsa became hopelessly lost. Chills set into his bones, so he took shelter in a cave. But the cave was home to a big brown bear. Corsa drew his longbow, but the bear seized it. "I was just about to go out for dinner," said the bear. "Nice of you to drop by." He looked at Corsa and began to drool. "You shouldn't do that," replied Corsa. "I am old and stringy and not at all good to eat. Let me share your cave, and in the morning I will gather honey and berries. You shall have a feast for the kings." "Agreed," said the bear, "but go no further into the cave. You won't like what you'll find there." Corsa warmed himself by nestling into the bear's thick fur. The bear fell asleep, but Corsa was kept awake by what lay further in the darkness. Finally, he could no longer endure the mystery. At the back of the cave Corsa found a huge room, and in the middle of that room an enormous dragon. Said the dragon. "Food." Wait, cried Corsa. "I am old and stringy and not at all good to eat. Let me leave, and I will bring you the bear." "I think not," said the dragon. "That bear promised me breakfast." And that was the end of the jackal. The Tale of Corsa, from Bedtime Stories for Good Children, by Sister Marigold. Mantle of the Champion. Champion, an honor unique to the Three Marches. Other terms for reverence suffer the stains of their holders, the lingering baggage of office and entitlement. But champion is not an appointment that can be sought. It cannot be owned or willed, and the process by which it is bestowed is not argued through policy or guile. It is earned with blood and sweat and leadership, in times of great turmoil. Always worthy, as their deeds are true importance, a champion is greeted not by debate, but by nods of reverence. The title was most recently granted in Tantervale, 882 Blessed, on the resolution of the bloody expansion of Nevera. Their king, emboldened by the taking of Perendale and the quick yielding of Hasmal, thought the remainder of the Three Marches as easy claim. He who became the champion. Cade Arval of Rivain did what Orlais had not. He stopped a nation in its tracks. There was blood and barter, but Tantervale is still free against all odds. There is the contradiction of the honor. Champion is not itself a sign of approval. He or she can be respected or feared, their coming dreaded as much as desired. All that is common is that they have an effect and lives are changed. Kirkwall now adds to the history of the title, a first for the city, on this 1934 dragon. The Cunari are repelled by the means respected or reviled, and it remains to be seen what follows for this hawk, the champion of Kirkwall. From The Champion, History Ancient and Current, excerpted by Philiam, a bard. Puzzle Ring of the Fox. In Orlais, they say there are 10 of these rings, one for each finger, and that the black fox was never without a single one. Some claimed each represented a conquest, others that they were reminders of secrets that he kept, and still others that they carried an inscription that, if all the rings were assembled as one, told the location of the Black Fox's stronghold. Many nobles in Val Rio have claimed to own one or more of the rings, but nobody has ever found them all. Their secret, if there is one, is safe to this day. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar, by Brother Gentili. Ring of the Ferryman. Legend has it that prior to seizing powers as the first Archon of the Tevinter Imperium, Darinius had a dream that he crossed a mighty river in a small ferry piloted by a man whose face was always in shadow. When he reached the other side, Darinius looked back and saw that the ferryman was himself. When he took the throne, Darinius chose, as the seal of the Archon, an image of a hooded ferryman. Every Archon since has worn such a ring on the third finger of his right hand. A new ring is cast in gold for each Archon, with his name around the image itself. By tradition, upon his death, the ring is ceremonially crushed in front of the assembled magisters, so that no one may use the power of the Archon until a new one is crowned. But the tradition has been circumvented at least twice, A forgery can be substituted and ritually destroyed in place of the ring of the ferryman. This one bears the name of Archon Hadarius, but whether its true ring of the forgery is impossible to discern. Satareth. Qunari are a people of metaphors, and for them, words have many meanings. Satareth, the name given by the Arishok to its axe, means that which upholds. It is the word for foundation, defender, and enforcer, all at once. Shield of the Knight herself. A shield of impressive weight, to the point of being unwieldy if held by a weak hand. The crest is Dalish and Old Orlesian, and the direct and deliberate styling can be a reference to only one person. The legendary Ser Aveline, the first woman to gain Orlesian knighthood. Abandoned as a baby, Aveline was raised by the Dalish and grew into a skilled warrior. Her elven parents encouraged Aveline to demonstrate her skill among her human kin, but women were not allowed to enter Orlesian knighthood or compete in tournaments. She entered anyway, her features obscured by armor. Aveline defeated everyone she faced. Her final victory came to a brutal end when Kaleva, a knight in service to the emperor, tripped Aveline out of frustration, knocking the helm from her head. Realizing that his honor had been bested by a woman, Kaleva demanded that the competition be nullified. Cheered by the crowd, he lashed out and killed the fallen Aveline. Prince Freyan had also faced Aveline in the tournament, and saw her death as a great injustice. When Freyan became emperor in 744 Storm, he formally recognized her skill by abolishing the practices that had excluded her. She was posthumously knighted, and while women are still a rarity in the Orlesian knighthood, those who enter revere Sir Aveline as their patron. Sir Aveline's career was short. It's simply impossible for her to have held all the equipment that has been attributed to her over the years. But this shield is still of exceptional quality, and Aveline may find its attribution for her namesake of interest. Shield of the Resolute. The Shield of the Resolute was once worn by Knight Commander Raynor of Skarkhavin. Raynor's father crafted this shield for him when Raynor was recruited to the Templar Order. It was plain and unadorned when it first left the anvil, a simple shield for a smith's son. Raynor proved himself on a mission to rescue several mages from a demon. Upon seeing the creature, the other Templars fell back in fear. Only Raynor held position, his father's shield in front of him. He killed the demon, and saved both the mages and his fellow Templars. Raynor's heroism earned him respect. His superiors, his colleagues, and the mages of Starhaven Circle saw him a fair and honorable Templar. He was Knight Commander by 35. Raynor's shield was modified over the years and enchanted at least twice. By the time Raynor passed the shield on to his successor, it no longer looked as it did when Raynor first strapped it to his arm. It had become a shield worthy of a Knight Commander. The Spiral Eye. Kirkwall has been a tinderbox since becoming the center of Templar power in Eastern Theras. Of the hundreds of mages that live in the Gallows, it is perhaps telling that the most well-known are its apostates. Caradweth was one such infamous apostate. She lived during the latter half of the Storm Age, and was known for hunting priests and Templars that abused their charges excessively. Caradweth was also known as the Watcher and the Spiral Eye, so named for the spiral glyph she marked near her victims. Templar records show that Caradweth was captured and made tranquil in 790 Storm. Many refuse to believe this, so her legend lives on. From Kirkwall, the City of Chains, by Brother Genetivi, 924 Dragon. Staff of Violation. Old friend. First Enchanter Casimira was no blood mage. Hogwash. Your story of her investing dark arts into the staff is just that, a fable. Casimira was, in fact, the first leader of Kirkwall's circle of magi. She was saddled with the great task of transforming the decrepit, crumbling prison into a proper home for mages transferred to her from all over Thedas. Some of those mages were apostates, men and women one step away from being rendered tranquil, and it was her unfortunate task to keep order. How many battles did she fight in those early days? How much blood was spilled on those grounds? Casimira had to be a hard woman, but she did it to keep the Templars from declaring the right of annulment and killing us all. And your other rumor that she was arrested by the first Knight Commander? I am telling you it isn't so. I have studied the records, and the truth of the matter is that Casimira was taken by a demon, and slain before she could ever endanger the tower. The Templars admired her strength in holding the demon back long enough for them to act. It was a noble sacrifice, and Casimira's staff was kept by the first enchanters to commemorate this. It saddens me that people chose to dwell on this form rather than the lesson it signifies. A letter by first enchanter Orsino, 926 Dragon. Stonehammer's gift. Many scholars claim that the Winter Imperium owes their rise to power as much to the dwarves as they do to magic. The dwarves brought currency and commerce to humanity, as well as entertainment. The proving, the dwarven name for gladiatorial arena matches, became popular in imperial society in 200 ancient. This led to the construction of the Grand Proving Arena, a structure that still stands 2,000 years later. King Andrin Stonehammer attended the first match held at the Grand Proving. He was taken with the sport and awarded enchanted armor to the victim. The armor was lost during the Imperium's Great Civil War in 575 ancient. There are rumors that Stonehammer's gift, or portions thereof, has since surfaced outside of the Winter, most prominently during the Fourth Blight Battle of Aisley, where the armor was reportedly worn by the fabled champion of Starkhaven. From Tales of the Imperium by Sister Dulcinea, 920 Dragon. Sundering. In the legends of the Ash Warriors, nothing is more hallowed than Sundering, the battle mace of Luthier's dwarfson. Legend says that the mace was not crafted by hand, but instead hatched from an egg high in the mountains and then carried by birds to Luthier's as a wedding gift from the Lady of the Skies. When Luthier's dies, dwarves arrived to carry him to Orzammar to be buried as one of their own with the stone. Sundering was to lie at his side, but the mace could not be found. Stories say the birds reclaimed it, and it will deliver it to another hero in time. From Alamari Myths and Legends by Sister Petrine, Chantry Scholar. Talisman of Sarabas. A simple shape on a leather cord. The uneven polish is not a failure of workmanship, rather the result of exacting and repeated study by powerful hands. Black glimmers curl just beneath a surface that should be solid, and there are glimpses of a cord that seems to be carved from a piece of horn. Gaze for more than a moment, and it seems to stir something in an uncommonly dark corner of the mind, coaxing out a familiar, primal emotion. Want. It is impossible to say whether Sarabas intended this as a reinforcement of a restriction. At the moment, it simply is. This secret thing was never meant for the eyes of another. Templar's ceremonial cummerbund. When a Templar takes his vows and enters the service of Andraste, he is presented with a suit of ceremonial armor to be worn when in the presence of the Grand Cleric. Every piece of the armor is covered in the iconography of Blessed Andraste. The cummerbund is wide, made of interlocking steel plates inlaid with gold, and adorned with 208 embossed stars along the edging, one for each day Andraste sung to the Maker to deliver her people. The center plate depicts, in bas relief, the burning sword of mercy. Beside it is a shield, representing the disciple Havard. On the other side is ring split in half, which symbolizes Matharoth. The buckle is formed like a sun, representing the Maker. On the steel inner face of each plate, a line of the chant of light is written. The last is an interesting touch, concealed artistic flair or an overt cheat sheet mass. An excerpt from the Chantry, an introspective, by Sister Petrine, Chantry scholar. Tranquility. Orana was brought to the circle of Magi in Kirkwall at the age of 5. Her mentors had high hopes for the child, seeing her talent for magic. Unfortunately, the poor child was plagued by nightmares that only worsened after her move to the gallows. Orana became afraid of falling asleep. She would lie stiffly in bed, her eyes wide open. Without sleep, she grew thin and wan, and her studies began to suffer. Orana began to experience waking dreams. Shadows flitted in corners, and she swore she heard voices calling her name. She knew demons could take advantage of her vulnerable state, and at the tender age of 11 she requested to be made tranquil. The first enchanter complied. With her connection to the fates severed, Orana was again able to sleep. Her health returned, and she was at peace with her decision. She continued her education at the Circle and excelled in enchanting and rune crafting. Orana saw the right of tranquility as a gift, although many mocked her for this view. Later in life, she created an amulet to remind her of the right. She named it Tranquility. The Tranquility amulet soothes the mind and imparts a general sense of well-being to its wearer. Urzora's Tooth. In 728 Storm, a high dragon rampaged through the northern Free Marches, destroying villages and killing over 100 people. Following in the dragon's wake was a group of wild-eyed fanatics who worshipped the dragon that they called Urzora. The cultists believed Urzora would soon claim the Maker's throne, being the child of the old god Urthimiel. To prepare for the dragon's ascension to true godhood, the cultists burned down village chantries and forced those they came upon to bow down to their crude stone idol of the dragon. Followed by her cult, the dragon returned to their mountside home near the mouth of the Minantha River. The marchers, afraid the dragon and her cult might one day return, assembled a small army of militia. The men suffered heavy losses but succeeded in killing the dragon. When Urzora fell, many cultists threw themselves into the Menanter and died. The cult leader was captured and taken to Tentervale, where he was publicly emasculated, disemboweled, and burned. His symbol of power, a talisman carved from Urzora's mighty tooth, was awarded to the man who struck the killing blow on the dragon. The Vague Blade. What does it do? Well, who can say? It changes form from day to day. Of unknown metal and magic keen, a finer blade there's never been. My foe once exclaimed as he was flayed, I've never seen so vague a blade. From Legendary Blades of Thedas, by Lord Roderick Gudenschwanz. Valdacine. In the ancient days before the Darkspawn, when dwarven cities wound through the roots of all the earth, House Valdacine single-handedly kept the empire supplied with lyrium. One day the mining family shut the doors of their thaig. They spoke not to their noble patrons, nor their king, and not even a visiting paragon. Days passed in silence before the door to Valdacine thaig opened. Anxious partners discovered it empty. Not one soul remained. No bodies, and no sign of what had happened. House Valdacine only left a staff of strange metal behind. It looked like lyrium and chilled one's heart like a remembered sorrow. The king sealed the staff inside the thaig, and no dwarf ever ventured there again, as recounted by Shaper Merta. Vestments of Sacrifice. The Vestments of Sacrifice is a replica of the robe worn by Grey Warden Neraya, a mage who fought in the Second Blight's final battle in Starhaven. According to legend, she threw herself in front of a Darkspawn emissary to protect her lover, Corrin. Neraya's sacrifice saved Corrin's life, which was instrumental in ending the Blight, for it was Corrin's blade that struck the Archdemon Ezekiel down. The original robe was displayed at the Circle of Magi in Antiva for many years, and I count myself among the lucky to have seen Neraya's robe before it was destroyed in a fire. I constructed this replica from my notes and sketches, and it is as accurate a copy as one could achieve. I have even gone to great lengths to recreate the enchantments placed on the original robes. The recreation of this garment brings me great joy and fulfillment. I hope it brings the same to one of your order. Please accept this gift, humbly presented, as a token of appreciation for all the Grey Wardens have done for Thebes. Excerpt of a letter from First Enchanter Haramond of Starkhaven to Warden Commander Darnheim of Weishaupt. Vir Atishan. There is never a shortage of hunters. The Vir Tanadal, the way of free trees, has lured many to Androil's side. The Vir Atishan, the way of peace, is a harder path to tread. A few are called to her, lies wisdom. Those who hear that call learn the arts of the healer and the mender. As told by Gisarel, keeper of the Ralaferan clan of the Dalish elves,